Testing 1, 2, 3. Do you want me to just use a different mic? Do you want me to just use a different mic? Okay. I have to have my hands free. Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2.
Live stream has started. Test 1, 2. Say good morning. Good morning. My name is Gary. I'm your worship leader this morning. And bear with me, I'm not used to this feeling like a Martian up here in a spacecraft ready to take off. Let's hope this works out and that you can hear me. I'm the service coordinator this morning here at All Souls, where our mission is to seek truth, practice love, celebrate life, and I will throw in serve others. Whether you're joining us for the first time or you've been a member for a long time, you are welcome here. Whatever faiths you have known or not known, or whatever your heritage, you are welcome here. Whatever questions you hold, whatever truths you seek, whatever sorrow you have known, whatever joy has filled your heart, whoever you are and whomever you love, you are welcome here. I'll call your attention to the insert in the our order of service for announcements. Nobody told me there were any I was supposed to give, but I'll call on Paul right now, who is going to say a few words, I imagine, about our pledge drive.
You're stealing my thunder, Gary. Yes, Today is the first day of our pledge drive, and our theme this year is Uplift All Souls. Our church is doing well. We're a small church, as most of you know, but we have been gaining members. We are doing programs. We are contributing to the local nonprofit world. We are outreaching to others. All of these things require funds, and we're calling on you, our congregants, to make a pledge. There is an important other reason why a pledge is necessary. To be a member, you must sign the book, which some people here have done, and you must make a pledge on a pledge card. Your pledge does not have to be large. Some people choose to give a small amount. Some people choose to give more. We don't require tithing or things like that, which are seen in some other churches, but we would like everyone who is a member of the church to make a pledge. The pledge drive will run now for 4 weeks. After you fill your pledge card out, you may give it to me, or there will be a box in the back that you can put it in. We would like you to consider possibly a small increase in your pledge because life is getting more expensive, everything else is more expensive, and our pledge goal of $60,000 is up from the last year's pledge of $55,000. So do please consider, within your circumstances, making an increase in your pledge. Thank you so much, and if there's any questions about the drive, you can ask me.
Unless there's any other announcements, we'll go right to our prelude. Our reading for the chalice lighting is 428, words by May Sarton. Come out of the dark earth, here where the minerals glow in their stone cells, deeper than seed or birth. Come into the pure air above all heaviness of storm and cloud, to this light-possessed atmosphere. Come into, out of, under the earth, the wave, the air. Love, touch everywhere. Touch us everywhere with primeval candor. Our first song is number 21, For the Beauty of the Earth. Our first reading is number 465. We get the pleasure of reading a poem by Wendell Berry, The Wisdom to Survive. We read this responsively. If we will have the wisdom to survive, to stand like slow-growing trees on a ruined place, if we will make our seasons welcome here, asking not too much of earth or heaven,
then a long time after we are dead, the lives our lives prepare will live here.
their houses strongly placed upon the valley sides,
Fields and gardens, rich in the windows, the river will run clear as we will never know.
and over it birdsong like a canopy.
On the levels of the hills will be green meadows, soft bells in noon shade.
On the steeps where greed and ignorance cut down the old forest,
An old forest will stand, its rich leaf all drifting on its roots.
the veins of forgotten springs will have opened. Families will be singing in the fields.
In their voices they will hear music risen out of the ground.
They will take nothing from the ground. They will not return, whatever the grief at parting.
The memory native to this valley will spread over it like a grove, and memory will grow into legend. Legend into song,
The abundance of this place, the songs of its peoples and its birds, will be health and wisdom and indwelling light.
This is no paradisal dream. Its hardship is its possibility.
Okay, for the best part of the show this morning, we have our word for all ages. So I would like to invite anybody who feels like coming forward to get a better look at your pictures here of the book. Now, I had children. Fortunately, I'm having some grandchildren, so we get to enjoy the pleasure of picture books again. Not that I couldn't go to the children's section any day, but now we have a real good excuse to do it. So we're going to share this book called Wonder Walker this morning by Mika Archer, and she was a kindergarten teacher along with being a writer and illustrator. She did the drawings in here, and so here we go. Test. Wonder Walkers. This is a story about two children who are fortunate to live somewhere where they can go for a walk outside in nature. Wonder Walkers. They're inside right now, looking at some books, laying on the sofa. Wonder walk? Asks the young girl. Sure, says the boy. Is the sun the world's light bulb? Is fog the river's blanket? They're asking a lot of questions on this walk. Do mountains have bones? Are forests the mountain's fur? Struggling with the pages. I knew this was going to happen. I tracked this ahead of time. I wonder, says the girl. Me too, says the boy. They're looking at all kinds of flowers and plants. Are trees the sky's legs? Big trees. Are branches trees' arms? Looks like they're up in the tree, doesn't it? That looks like a blast. Are roots the plant's toes? Do caves have mouths? On the seashore there, it looks like. Lake shore. Are shells the shore's necklace? Is the ocean the world's bath? Are rivers the earth's veins? Is the wind the world breathing? Is rain the day's tears? It's like you're out in the rain. We had some rain the other day. That was nice. Is the moon the world's nightlight? We're back home now. We got a cat too. wonder. Me too. In the house, and going to bed, safe and sound. You know, we have a body, we have fingers and toes and a nose, and it's all connected and it all has to work together. And they're outside in the world that's all connected and it all has to work together. They're kind of comparing it to our body, right? Toes and veins and fur, it all has to work together. Thanks for coming. Thanks, Scott. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay, this is an opportunity that we have, that tradition we have, where we get to share joys and concerns with one another. They say that a joy shared is twice the joy, and a burden shared is half the burden. And so you're welcome to come forward and take a stone and share your joy or burden and place it in the water. I'm going to start out. I'm happy. I'm now, as of yesterday, I'm now on my 71st trip around the sun. Thankfully, I've made it this far and fairly healthy. And still another stone for my mother-in-law, Marion, who continues to be in the Sanford hospice cottage.
I received some sad news this morning. Rick Noby's partner, Karen Johnson, died yesterday. And on a happier note, the next stone is for our speaker today, who is a 2024 Bush Fellow, which is a big deal. And if you read there's a website in the program on the top of the first page that has where you can read about him, but they asked him, who's your dream dinner guest? And David said, a mentor of mine, Don Reginaldo, I won't pronounce this right, Reginaldo Chayo-Hugh. His wisdom and generosity had a profound impact on me because of his belief in the mutual exchange of knowledge. I admire his commitment to sharing wisdom that is gleaned from the forest. Our meal will be reminiscent of the Day of the Dead celebration as a way to show both a shared appreciation for cultural traditions and a reverence for the interconnectedness of all life. So I feel like you're kind of the closest to royalty that we have here, David, so thanks for being here today.
It's me again. So last week, I was lucky enough to lead service, and my joy was that my children were healthy, and then we got home and they were immediately sick. So I'm glad they're healthy now. On a hilarious note, I guess, my 2-year-old, she turns 3 on the 19th. So I will be weeping that day. You will not be able to find me. I'll be too busy crying. But she started mixing up I miss you, or like I love you so much, and I love you too. So now before bed she says, I love you too much. And that brings me joy. So.
Hi. I just want to thank all of you who were concerned about me and my husband, who had a very, very bad fall, hit his head and had a very severe brain injury. and was in the intensive care for about a week, I think. And he's been at rehab now, and he's going to be released pretty soon. We feel very lucky because I'm certain that although nothing was directly said, they did not feel that he was going to make it when he first went in. And so I thank everyone who was thinking and praying for us. Prayer has power, and it helped us greatly. Thank you.
And one final stone for all of the joys and concerns that are left unsaid in our hearts and minds. Our next song is number 79. After a brief moment of silence, I'll announce that. We'll have a moment of silence to consider our thoughts and concerns. Our second reading, number 492. Fragile and rooted. See a blossom in your mind's eye. Allow it to fill the interior of your imagination. Greater perfection of form in nature cannot be imagined. With inward gaze, absorb each wondrous fluted petal. Slide down its humid surface until you drop as the dew into its velvety core. Immerse your senses in this safe chamber. Such fragile beauty gives impulse to weep. Slowly reverse the journey as you ascend the shaft toward wider light. Turn your imagination around and around to see its many facets, stored within the memory of all flowers. Marvel that this creation, while utterly fragile, yet undaunted, boldly buds forth resolutely toward the sun. We too shimmer with expectation, exuding our own illumination, color, pulse, and scent. Vulnerable still, we venture our lives courageously toward hope and light, at once fragile and rooted. Carolyn S. Owen Toll. And now I guess it's my honor to welcome royalty. I didn't know we had royalty, but I'll call him royalty. We're happy to have that David O'Hara has agreed to be with us today. He is the professor of philosophy, classics, and environmental studies, director of environmental studies and sustainability in the Department of Religion, Philosophy, and Classics at Augustana University. He's written several books, and he too likes to go on wonder walks in various places around the earth, and he often brings students. And so we're so happy and honored that he is here to speak with us.
Thank you, Gary. And if I am royalty, and if royalty is in fact inherited, as they often say, and if we are all family, as I affirm, then I think that we are all equally royalty. And Gary and I at least are equally feeling awkward with this thing hanging on our head, but hopefully you can hear me. Okay, very good. All right. Well, I'm going to give you an update from the Guatemalan rainforest. The reason it's an update is that you've heard me speak about my work in the rainforest in Petén, which is the northeast of Guatemala. So I'm here to tell you just a little bit more. Sometimes I've shown you maps of what this part of Guatemala looks like. I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to take a different approach today, but of course afterwards, one of the things I love about this congregation is the chance to hear back from you, and of course you might have questions, and I'd be happy to answer those after that as well. I want to give a slightly different perspective on Guatemala this time. Often when I tell people that I'm working in Guatemala, they say, oh, I've been to Antigua, for instance, or I've been to one of the places there's some, over on the west coast, the Pacific coast, and in the mountain ranges in the southwest of Guatemala, there's some lovely lakes and volcanoes and beaches and so on. I don't go there. I tend to go up to the lowlands up in the northeast, just near the borders with Belize and the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. This is a part of Guatemala that was a very low population until fairly recently, till the end of the Civil War in 1996. Since then, there's been a considerable amount of migration to the area because people are looking for land, looking for places where they can grow food, where they can raise their families, and so on. And this has created certain challenges. That part of Guatemala had one of the last, or the largest intact pieces of rainforest in Central America and really throughout the Americas. Great biodiversity. In a moment I'm going to show you some pictures of some of that biodiversity because I want you to see just how lovely it is. But as people go there seeking food, you've got a challenge. How do you preserve that rainforest and at the same time preserve the lives of the people who need to feed their families. And part of why I want to tell you this is because I want to tell you about one way that I messed up there. And I also want to give you a different story about people from Guatemala. Because the story that we hear so often, especially now, is that people coming to our country from Central America are somehow bad. And just as when Alan was talking about my mentor, Don Reginaldo Chayashwish, his name is very difficult to pronounce, don't feel bad about that at all, I started to cry. I start to cry when I think about the amazing people who have welcomed me in, even though my country fueled their civil war that lasted for 36 years. Even though my country extracts wealth from that country and then wonders why people follow that wealth when it flows northward. Even though my country creates political and economic instability in that country and in many others, and then wonders why people flee that instability for the kind of stability that we have here. Let me assure you, no one in Guatemala wants a South Dakota winter. They've got tropical fruit growing in their front yard. If you had mangoes and bananas growing in your front yard, you probably wouldn't want to leave that. More importantly, if you had family and deep roots and history and a language that's familiar and food and smells that make you feel at home, you wouldn't want to leave that either. And I've had friends who have walked from Guatemala across all of Mexico and across Texas, or the border into Texas. People who have gone through terrible difficulties, including a friend of mine who walked with 4 little children to make that journey because she wanted to provide a good life for her children. If you hear somebody say that these people are criminals, if you hear somebody say that these people are terrible people in any way, I want to testify here and now that these are people who love their neighbors as themselves, who love their families, who desire, just as you and I do, to see their communities flourish. And it's really easy for us to think of Guatemala only in terms of either alleged, and I'm going to put the air quotes here, criminals leaving there, or in terms of that vacation spot that somebody found that's got great bars in Antigua. All right, enough of that. I'm going to start to sound like I'm doing a fire and brimstone preaching here, and I just want to show you some pretty pictures for a little bit. So let me start with this $10 packet of pencils. And I tend to travel with a sketchbook and with pencils. You know what? I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to set myself a timer because I'm a philosophy professor. And if I don't set a timer, let's set a timer. You give me 20 minutes. I'm going to set it for 15. There we go. As otherwise, I can just keep talking for like an hour, and then I have to breathe in at that point and then start all over again. I tend to carry a sketchbook with me, and I try to bring pencils, and I've got some watercolor pencils and a brush and some pens in here, because I like to pay attention to the small things, to the small lives around us. Those might include, if you can see it, there's a dragonfly on here. That might include small things like insects that we think of as pests, but it might also include, it does include those lives, those human lives that we think of as small because they're not wealthy or because they're not politically powerful. So let me start with this $10 packet of pencils. I happened to take this picture in Michael's here in Sioux Falls when I got back because I wanted to have a picture of a fresh one. And I just want you to have that in mind. It's a little tin of pencils. It looks a little bit like this right here, which is not a tin of pencils, but the same company. Just a little tin of some things that you can use for sketching and drawing. And now let me take you to what we call the Maya Biosphere Reserve. This is a big chunk of rainforest, or we're losing the rainforest, but there's some wonderful things there, wonderful animals and sacred spaces. Tikal National Park, for instance, a number of other, what we think of in our culture as ruins, but that people there will often think of as sacred spaces or ancestral homelands. And then the Bioitza Forest Reserve. This sort of image will look familiar. These are both taken in Tikal National Park. We have here one of the temples in the Gran Plaza, or the Plaza Mayor of Tikal National Park. We have some some various altars. These lower round stones are altars, and then the stones that are standing up are actually, they're both sacred and they're pictures of the mathematical and astronomical brilliance of the Maya people. There's a tremendous amount that I could say about this. I'm not going to right now, because then again, I will talk forever. I really do like the sign, though, that has a picture of a jaguar and that says, "Cuidado," watch out. It's also because they don't want you to hit it. Like, if there's a jaguar in the street, leave it alone. Don't run it over. This place is a place of immense beauty, and so many of the beautiful things are very small. If you get up on top of those temples, some of them you can climb up to the top, and they have platforms and wooden stairs so you don't destroy them. You look out and you see green and all sorts of other colors, in part because every tree there is not an individual. It's actually, you pick any particular tree out of the forest there, it might have tens of thousands of things living on it, including bromeliads, orchids, all sorts of other things. Some of them only flower at night. Like, you'll never see them flower unless you happen to climb a tree with a flashlight. And yes, I've done that sort of thing. So I'm just going to go through quickly here and show you some. This is on the Bio-Itza Forest Reserve, just a little turtle with some mud on its back, basking in the sunlight. A brilliant red dragonfly. My camera did a terrible job of actually capturing the color of just how red this thing is. Even its eyes are red. You might not recognize this. These are snail eggs. Just beautiful snail eggs. Snails and bugs we often think of as nasty, but let me assure you, without the bugs and the snails, the forest wouldn't regenerate itself. That poem that we just read by Wendell Berry talks about this. Loads of little butterflies, which are not just pretty, but they're pollinators and food for other things. And some really big butterflies. This one's about the size of a dessert plate. And we've got some of the same species over at the Butterfly House in Sioux Falls. The coati and this, it's a gray fox, but they call it gato de monte, which means a forest cat or a mountain cat. I love that because it looks kind of cat-like. That's a larger gato. This is a jaguar. This one, by the way, was not stalking me. This is at a place called Arcas, which is an animal rehabilitation facility right at the edge of the forest there, because so many people will go into the forest because they're hungry, and they will capture animals and then try to sell them. And sometimes this one I believe was hit by a car. You can't see it here, but it's got a spinal deformity. Poor thing can't even lick itself and scratch itself in all the places, but it was too beautiful not to show you. I look for them in the forest and I never get to see them. A woodpecker high up in the tree, an arikara, relative of the toucan. This is a keel-billed toucan. I love the fact that there's so much diversity that they don't have just one kind of toucan. They've got like 3 or 4. This is a mot-mot, beautiful bird. A crested guan. This is roughly the size of our turkeys. This one and its mate were walking through the forest. I don't even know the name of this one. It's one of the many small hawks there. I believe this one hunts insects. An ocellated turkey. It looks like if you took our turkeys and then dipped them in Technicolor. Just gorgeous. And as they walk by you, they seem to change color. The forest is amazing. This was a howler monkey, just sitting quietly digesting its meal while some spider monkeys nearby annoyed it. And it was thinking, guys, I'm a vegetarian. It takes me a while. Leave me alone. And here was one of the spider monkeys, which are more omnivores, smaller and far more. They're like the little brothers of the howler monkeys, going around and eating things. And then both species are prone to throw poo at you. These are gorgeous things, and the forest is full of all sorts of amazing things. This right here, if you were to walk by this tree and smell that sap, you'd say, I want some of that, because it smells so good. And that's actually why there are scars here. As I was walking through the forest with a friend of mine who's the director of the Asociación Bio-Itza, which is an indigenous forest preservation and cultural preservation community run by the Itza people, we looked at this tree and saw that plainly people have been here with machetes hacking at the sap, sort of like what we would do to get maple syrup or maple sap. In order to harvest, this is copal, in order to harvest that, and then you can use it for incense. It's quite expensive if you can harvest it. But you can see it's also not probably all that comfortable for the trees. And every one of the copal trees that we saw had been hacked into. While we were looking at this, we heard dogs barking. We were pretty deep into the forest at this point, and there shouldn't be dogs there. That is to say, the dogs are not native to the area. So we knew that the dogs were there because they were hunters. And we all just sort of froze. And I asked him, so what do you want to do now? And he said, we're going to do as little as possible because those hunters they know that they're not supposed to be here, and they know that if they get caught, they're in trouble, and they know that if we see them, they're caught. And they have a responsibility then to put us underground. It's a challenging place to live under those circumstances. Everybody's trying to do what they can with what they've got. I don't think of any of these people as bad people, by the way. I think of these as people who are doing what they can given the circumstances that surround them. As we walked along, we saw more of these things. Now, that's to give you a little bit of a picture of how beautiful the rainforest is and also of some of the challenges. I had this really cool experience, though. This is us. That's my wife in the pink and me taking a picture, and I don't know who this guy with the shirt that says "worth it" and these other people are. But if you're a wealthy white person like me, you can pay a little extra, and they'll let you into the park for sunset. So I'm a wealthy white person, especially in Guatemala. I'm a very wealthy white person. Here we are on top of one of the temples on a wooden platform that's been built for us. They let 30 people in a night, and we're watching the sunset in the west over the forest. As I was sitting there, and I identify with Gary, I'm also about to become a grandfather. I'm sitting there, and there's this young family beside me with this little girl. They're from Spain, I can tell by their accent, and they're talking. And I've got my sketchbook out, and I'm sketching what's going on with the forest at night. I love to try to capture I know you can't see it, but you'll just have to trust me. It's beautiful, unless you look closely. If you look closely, then it's okay. I'm sketching this, and she looks at me, and then she turns to her father and says, "Papá, ¿tienes un bolígrafo?" She's saying, "Dad, do you have a pen that I can use?" And he has to say, "No, I don't have anything on me. I'm sorry, I got nothing." And I heard this, and being the incipient grandfather that I am, I reached into my backpack, that very one that's over there, which I've got lots of paper and pens and so on. I took out some watercolor paper, some good heavy stock, and put it in front of her, and took out my roll of colored pencils and just spread them out in front of her and said, "You want to sketch the forest with me?" Let me show you what she did. So here we are, we're just looking at, that's the same temple that George Lucas filmed a scene from the first Star Wars movie from. It's pretty neat. There's the sunset, and here's what Daniela did. Is that not the most beautiful piece of art ever? We just talked about, what colors do you see? And she said, amarillo, yellow. And I was like, okay, let's get the yellow pencil out. She started sketching yellow, and she started sketching orange and so on. And afterwards, I just asked if I could take a picture of the art so I could hang on to that, because first I wanted her to be able to take her own art home. It was fun the next day as we were walking through the park again, and the same family saw us, and they were like, "It's him, el abuelito." It's our little grandfather. So I want to bring you back to those pencils that I showed you at the beginning, that little $10 set of pencils. So here's that same image again, and this other image. Back about 7-8 years ago, I was in Guatemala. Whenever I go there, I try to stay with the same family. It's a family that's run by this wonderful woman named Merlina, who is, she almost comes up to my shoulder. She's a great-grandmother, I think, at this point, because almost every woman in her family has their first child sometime between ages 12 and 15. So she's only about 10 years older than me, but she's got a lot of generations living with her. She provides food and shelter for the whole family. She prays for everyone, knows them all by name. She's got, I think, 5 branches of her family living under her roof. And I sometimes forget just how easy it is for me to intrude upon their culture without even realizing it. And about 7 or 8 years ago, Jessica, one of her granddaughters, saw me sketching, and I saw her sketching. I collect Jessica's art. Every time she gives me a piece of art, it goes into one of my journals, and I always keep it with me. And I bring it back with me to Guatemala. It's been about 7 years because of COVID and for a bunch of other reasons, but I saw Jessica again, and I pulled out my journal. I said, "Jessica, you want to see what you did 7 or 8 years ago when you were just a preteen?" She's 21 now. And I showed her, and she did the thing. She's like, "Oh my goodness, you have no idea, Dave. I've gotten so much better than that. Let me show you." And she went back into her room, and she came back out with some amazing art. She's gone from doing those sketches that are sort of like Daniela's. Daniela's about 3. to doing some art. I'm not going to show you because it's her art, and I don't want to, you know, she's amazing. She's got sketches that look almost like photographs now. And she's all self-taught. She's also 21 and doesn't have any children yet, which is also quite stunning that she's managed to make it this far and start her own life without having to be breastfeeding at age 13. I mean, it's incredible. And then she said, let me show you something else. Here, I'm going to once again try not to get too choked up, but she brought out this tin of pencils right here. It's the same tin, by the way. It's slightly different design, but you can see how rusted it is. See, 2 of the pencils are gone. One of them is worn down to a stub. I gave that metal tin to Jessica 7 or 8 years ago, but I didn't think to ask Marlena, the matron of the house, if I could do it. In the morning, I gave it to her. I said, you're a great artist. Here you go. These are artist pencils. Go ahead and take these. And I came back to the house that night, and she was crying, and the pencils were gone. And Marlena had said, we share everything equally, and I, the grandmother, get to decide who gets what. And she had given the pencils to all the kids in the family, younger than Jessica. And one of the kids was like digging a hole in the floor and was poking a chicken with, you know, the pencil. And, you know, they're just kind of having sword fights and so on. The very same things I would have done if I was a kid, but I was furious and so upset for Jessica. But then I realized, okay, I just messed up. I just walked into this family's home and did something that I shouldn't have done. I should have paid attention to how their culture actually runs. This woman holds together so many families, providing all that they need. And here I just show up, this tall white man who's got loads of money to spend on art supplies, and I just give it away, thinking about individuals and not about the flourishing of the whole community. And thankfully, Marlena is very generous with me, as have been just about every person that I've met in Guatemala. And she explained to me how things work. And I went into town that night and I bought a lot more pencils so that she could give them to all of the children in the family, and asked her, would you consider, and it's up to you, but would you consider letting Jessica keep these pencils because she's really talented? And Marlena graciously said, yeah, we can do that. And then Jessica texted me about, I was just down there 2 weeks ago. She texted me about a week ago and she said, have a look at what I'm doing. This is her job now. She's working for the Guatemalan Ministry of Culture, doing indigenous-themed murals, helping to sustain their culture, the Itza art that you see engraved on places like that temple that I showed you before, and reminding people that this is our heritage. And they've recognized she's really good. This is her art. I've wondered, as I come back, you know, people often ask me to talk about sustainability. They want me to talk about policy and so on. I'm not really a policy guy. I think policy is important. I don't know exactly what we should be doing in terms of caring for Guatemala. I recognize that foreign policy is complex and so on. I do really want us to love our neighbors as ourselves, though. I do really want us to think about all of these creatures that I just showed you as our neighbors. And I do really want us to think about people like Daniela and Jessica as being our neighbors as well. And consider how little it takes to invest in the life of a child. How little it takes to read a story to a child, to share the little things that we have with a child, and how much a small investment in a human might pay off in the long run. I think when we think about sustainability, we need to be thinking not just in terms of the aggregate, not just in terms of what were the words that Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote that we just sang. I wrote them down. I'll read them again. I think this is a really helpful line, something that shows Emerson's prescience. No number tallies nature up. And these pictures, I'm just showing you a tiny little bit of what I saw that was cool in a couple of days in the rainforest. And we tend often to think about the big numbers, those things that we can add up in terms of statistics and charts and graphs. and forget about the small lives of people like Daniela and Jessica, because they're girls, or women now, one of them, because they're poor, because they're in Guatemala and not in, say, one of our wealthy cities. I guess what I want to leave you with is this. Maybe, just maybe, sustainability looks like giving children the tools that they need to make beautiful art. I don't want to be oversimplistic. I don't want to be sort of dreamy and say if we just hand out watercolors and paintbrushes, then all the world's problems will be solved, and we can go paint Elon Musk's face blue or something like that, and then all of a sudden everything's going to get better. I'm not that naive. But at the same time, it does feel to me like this is a little bit like planting seeds, tending trees under whose shadows we might never sit. Starting to clean up rivers, starting to clean them up knowing that we might never drink the pure water, but those who come after us will. Let me leave you with that, and like I said, I'm so grateful for being here with you, and I look forward to what sorts of responses and questions you might have for me later. Thank you.
Test. Now I think it's working. Okay. I was messing up. At this time we receive our offering. It takes a little money to run this building. We do heat it. I guess it's off a little bit because of the time change. That's what I was told. I put my sweater on. To receive the offering. We give these gifts freely. We receive these gifts gratefully. We dedicate these gifts to the work of our congregation, serving human wholeness, caring for our planet, upholding religious freedom, welcoming the stranger, loving one another. Our third reading is number 550. We belong to earth, attributed to Chief Noah Self. We'll read this one responsively. This we know, the earth does not belong to us. We belong to the earth.
This we know, all things are connected like the blood which unites one friend.
All things are connected.
Whatever befalls the earth befalls the sons and daughters of the earth.
We did not weave the web of life. We are merely a strand in it.
Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves.
Our third song is from the other songbook, the Singing the Journey, the teal color, number 1064, Blue Boat Home. The chalice is extinguished, but the light goes with us out into the world. Just a reminder, after our postlude, you're invited to the basement for a time of coffee and visiting, and then we gather back up here about 11:20 for our circle discussion.